discuss a bit about the deal with Hive.
So Scooter was hemorrhaging his clients. Scooter's very well known in the industry for not being, shall we say, the nicest guy to work with or for. He's great if you're working for him and you're making him money and you're making him like fame and success. But over and over, artists throughout his career have left him and said that he's great until he doesn't need you anymore, and then you're discarded. And he had lost all of his artists, including like Ariana Grande, for example, the Taylor Swift drama. And Justin was like his last big name. And he sold his whole business, Ithaca Holdings, to Hive, which is the K-pop company, which is very like the Korean mafia of music. And I'm pretty sure that was in 2021. That predates this kind of Justice World Tour fiasco where Justin's face was paralyzed and Justin, incurred all this debt. So it kind of feels, from my perspective, that I'm assuming that Scooter kind of saw the writing on the wall and was trying to move out of this position of managing talent, because no more talent was with him, and into this executive role. And he managed that, and he sold what he had for $1 billion to Hive. And this company, Ithaca Holdings, was like making less than 200 million a year in revenue, I believe. So it's like they're selling it at this crazy high valuation. And presumably that's because it includes the future perpetual rights to Justin Bieber and his brand.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay, I didn't even look at this.
And so, so this Hive sale, this Hive deal is critical because it happens before the Justice World Tour. Justin then goes on this crazy, more than a year-long world tour where he happens to get COVID at the start of it, and then he happens to get an injury that looks an awful lot like a vaccine injury.
His wife also had she had a brain clot.
Exactly. And he winds up with half his face paralyzed, can't continue. And so I'm not super clear on all the specifics because I don't have any like files or anything. It was just what I was told about the situation. But apparently the tour was booked out on advances, which is not uncommon for the industry as far as I'm aware. But it was such a big tour. We're talking hundreds of millions, at least tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars advanced. And so when he's partway through this tour and then can't continue, suddenly there's a whole bunch of debt that's been incurred that's not getting paid back. And obviously then Justin goes to his management and is like, so we have insurance, right? This is no problem. We have insurance for this kind of a thing. And allegedly what then was told to him is that, no, you broke your contract. So there is no insurance payout here. You actually have to cover this debt. And so Justin's management, whether it was Scooter technically at the helm of this or his other managers that were at the helm of this, that management team managed him in such a way that the most popular pop star, like one of the most popular pop stars in the world, got saddled with hundreds of millions of dollars worth of debt on a tour that they had mismanaged, and that he had all of these things reflect on the management and how poor their management style is, and are things that if Scooter was really a good manager, this would never happen to your artist, because he's supposed to work for the artist. He's supposed to be like the number one manager in the industry. So that all happens in the middle, and Justin is trying to get out, and Scooter's on the hook for $1 billion worth of value. Like, he's promised $1 billion worth of Justin Bieber's future to this Korean company, which he's now on the board of. And so I feel like Scooter's in the lurch, because suddenly Scooter can't deliver on this $1 billion promise that he's made, and Justin's trying to escape from that promise because he hates them all, and they're still trying to control him through his other company. So it feels to me like everyone is sort of trapped in bad ideas that are sort of leveraged to the hilt in terms of how much money is involved and how many promises are involved, and it all revolves around Justin continuing to produce music, which, like, anyone who's had a kid or a creative in their life knows that no creative dude like Justin is going to be producing hit singles if he hates you and you're trying to control his whole life. And so it feels like we're seeing not only these smear campaigns to try to get him back in line coming from Scooter, but it also feels like we're seeing Justin kind of acting out because he has no power. He's in secret litigation. They won't let him open a new clothing company. They won't let him profess his faith in God, or they're slandering that. So it's messy in every direction.
Yeah. It's really interesting because it also makes you just revisit everybody in the past that has kind of gone through a similar thing, a similar cycle. And what's really the tell is just the way the paparazzi suddenly takes a picture of them, and they're doing kind of nothing. Yep. And then suddenly they're trying to spin a picture of any person. Like, if you just have like a resting face, miserable, exhausted, on drugs, this, that. And it's like, you could take anybody out of context and say this. And especially someone like Britney Spears, I kind of go back to the breakdown and how they just had the paparazzi hounding her. And I wonder if she was similarly trying to take ownership of her life and trying to leave, because the reality is you can't get into these contracts as someone that is that young, even if your mom says like, yes, thumbs up, we can do this. And suddenly you maybe perhaps want to relitigate that when you get older. And from what I heard from, and I'll tell you exactly who it was, actually Courtney Love. I actually have had some conversations with her. Whoa. And she was saying to me that publishing in Hollywood is just one big gang, and they will own all of the publishing rights one way or another. And I go back and I think about what Michael Jackson said. I go back and think about what Prince said, and I'm looking at Justin Bieber, and I'm like, is this what this is really about? Is you are literally not allowed to take anything out of Hollywood with you when you go.
Absolutely. I mean, we know full well, not a secret, that Hollywood, and especially the music industry, was founded by the mob and the mafia. And the music industry specifically, you can like look into the exact mobsters that are famous for having been the sort of founders of this model, and then you can look at the history of the industry and see how they've always treated their artists this way, and they've always embezzled money in these ways and laundered money in these ways. And there's no evidence that it ever stopped, but there is evidence that the same tactics are still being used.
Right.
And to the paparazzi thing, Justin just posted, he's been doing it more and more, but he just posted on his Instagram a couple days ago a video of himself trying to walk out of his place with Hailey, and the paparazzi, the way they are there. And I can't help but suspect, like, is that kind of paparazzi attention always around every star? Or is it only there when someone wants to smear you?